What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with John Cooper of Skillet. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man, anytime. So, the new album Revolution is absolutely astonishing, just like every other record. When you compare the evolution from, the self-titled to Hey You, I Love Your Soul, Alien Youth to now, I mean, it's amazing on just how much your sound has evolved over the years throughout your career. Does the making of every album start off with a vision or like a preconceived idea, or is it a very throw paint at the wall sort of and see what sticks songwriting process?
Right, right. Great question. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say, very encouraging. I would say it's more towards the former than the latter. I would not say it's ever the throw paint, but I also would say there is a measure of, hey, we think we want to try this thing, and then it kind of evolves into something. Sometimes it's maybe it's a lot like what you tried, and maybe it's actually not quite like what you tried, but it grew in its own. That definitely can happen. That's happened to us in the past. Usually what I find is that we want to try some new things and we add it into the flavor. But because of, I think most musicians, and I think, or I don't know, certainly Skillet, we have the things that are identifiably us. It's our identity. And you can't get away from it, even if you were to want to try and go, I want to do something completely different and I'm going to do this. It's still going to have that residual like vibe of John and Korey Cooper. And so then it can end up being something that's different and a little bit unique. And that's what we've tried to do, So some of the stuff we've done, where you add in some hip hop influence or something, we're never going to be Linkin Park, even if you wanted to try to be Linkin Park or whatever hip hop artist, let's choose one. But it might bring like a little different flair of something you haven't heard yet. And I think that's pretty fun. So on the newest record, it just was a lot of fun making it. And so I really would brag on my wife, Korey, who is our guitar player and producer. And she produces a lot of our music and she does all the programming. She's really into that side of it. She's a really good programmer and producer. So she's always like, yeah, we'll try this and this. And I'm usually more just about like the song because I just want it to rock.
Well,
That's it.
it's
Just
funny
wanna
you
rock.
it's funny you mentioned that because you and Corey have such a great chemistry, being a married couple and making such beautiful music together. And I think like it really is astonishing. Like the Rebirthing was the first Skillet song I've ever heard, and hearing like those background vocals, but also watching you all play together, there really is such a great essence of community with all of you. When it comes to writing music together, do you and Corey kind of need to be in the same sort of headspace when writing music or lyrics together? Or being that you also have your individual talents, it is sort of better if maybe you are a little bit in your own headspaces when writing?
It's funny you say that. Rebirthing is my favorite Skillet song we ever did. It's my number one. Because I think all those elements came together. To me, it's the epitome of Skillet sound. And it was really the first song that I felt it was the home run of that, And I really enjoyed that. I would say for the most part, we're very open to each other's ideas. Now, maybe we each see it being slightly different. But I think the more we do it, the more we start realizing like where those nuances are coming in. I used to tell people it was funny that I want everything to sound like Metallica, and she wants everything to sound like Depeche Mode or The Cure, and so, and that's probably partly why Skillet sounds the way we do. But what I'm learning is really kind of interesting is that Korey really likes a certain kind of metal a lot, and she likes that kind of metal probably more than I do. And so sometimes if I'm like, I just want it to be heavy, and if she's not into what I'm doing, it's because maybe I haven't written it into the slight, nuanced genre of the kind of heavy that she likes. And the funny thing about the heavy that she likes like Architects and Bad Omens, and so before I had heard of those bands, it would have been stuff that I would have considered to be more like I don't know what genre you call that. Seth, what genre do I call that? The Hot Topic bands of like the early 2000s. I don't know. Asking Alexandria and Under Oath and, like
I love that
more like
stuff.
Screamo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Metalcore.
Screamcore.
You know.
I don't know.
Metal.
Metalcore. So basically, if it's got like double kick going like and somebody screaming, she would be like, "That's the heavy that I like," and my mind would be blown because I didn't realize she liked it so much. She would like be really into Demon Hunter or something. And for me, I was like, I'm at heavy like Breaking Benjamin or Korn or something like that. So it's funny, but that was the longest answer ever, but people get like an insight to the way we work. And so we're bringing a lot of different things together, and then we just keep tweaking until we both like it. And that's why Skillet sounds like it's a mesh of like lots of different kinds of sounds.
And yeah, because like I consider Skillet to be like a more experimental band. If you played me 30 seconds of a song, and this could just be me being a fan, but I could tell that would be off of Collide. That would be off of Victorious. That would be off of Hey You, I Love Your Soul. Every album has its own distinct sound. I wanted to ask you, because last year marked 20 years of my personal favorite Skillet album that I think is underrated, and that's Collide. And because lyrically, I am the eyes inside staring back at you. You can't stop me from falling apart because my self-destruction is all your fault. Those are like some of the most hard-hitting. The hairs on my arms still stand when I hear those lyrics. And that, I think, would consider to be the darkest Skillet album. So I was just wondering, what was the sort of mindset going into Collide? Because before that was Alien Youth and Invincible, very old school with the You Are My Hope sort of days. But then Comatose and Awake and Rise come after that. Was that almost like a turning point album?
Well, that's a really cool. I'm enjoying hearing your experience of my art. It's really, really cool. I think that Collide was a turning point for Skillet. And I think you're absolutely right about that. Collide was maybe I'll give you a little history of it because you might find it interesting since you like that record, and maybe other people listening may. I hope. And
please,
I hope not boring. Yeah, I think it was. So my first album was in '96, and that album was co-produced by two guys, Paul Ebersole and another guy called Skid Mills, and they were great guys. Did great. Paul, after that record, Paul was moving on into bigger projects. And then, I don't remember when, but probably around 1999, maybe, is when he was recording Three Doors Down, Three Doors Down's first album. And they were recording it in the same studio we were recording our 2000 release called Invincible. So I was like, "Hey, Paul, what are you working on?" He's like, "I'm working on this band called Three Doors Down." Well, obviously, that record became... what they sell 6 or 7 million albums of that first Three Doors Down record. It was huge. Just had that song Kryptonite. Remember that great song Kryptonite? Biggest radio song of the year. The following year, Paul Ebersole produced his Sister Hazel, which also had the biggest radio song, Hard to See What It Is I See in You. Remember that song?
Yeah, I don't know any other song, so.
Me neither, but that song, was so big. And Paul he's an A-lister. Boom. No way Skillet could ever afford Paul. Well, I saw him in the studio doing something, and I said to him, "Paul," this was in 2003. I said, "Paul, we've been doing this for a long time. We just had our first kid. We're not really selling any records. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know if we have much of a career left. I want to do an album that is a kick you in the teeth rock album. I am not making this album for this independent Christian market. I'm not making it for radio. I'm not making it to please anybody else. I want to write a for real metal album, and I want you to do it. I know you can't do it, but I would love it if you did it." And he said, "I'll do it." I couldn't believe it. I mean, he's getting paid several $100,000 to do albums. He did my record for $30,000, right? Because he just believed in the band. And so we made Collide. And Paul kept saying, I'd write something. He'd be like, he's kind of a a self-described redneck, Paul. He's a brilliant guy, funny guy, but he's a redneck. So he'd always be dipping. He would always have like dip in his mouth, and he'd be like, nope. He'd spit. He'd be like, nope. And he'd go, needs to be heavier. And I'd say, yeah. He goes, the riff is good, but it needs to be heavier. And he'd be like, no, it needs to. And so it's okay, we'll do it. And so we just made what I thought was a really good, hard album. And the lyrics were hard hitting, and I was really proud of Collide. And that is when we got signed to what Lava Records, which was through Atlantic at the time. Our A&R guy at Lava is who signed Kid Rock. And they, at the time, they had like Matchbox 20, so this is early 2000s. So Lava was selling a lot of records. I mean, they had a diamond album on Kid Rock, Bow to the Bow or whatever. So anyway, the point is that was a special album, and it was a turning point for when Skillet kind of went into we're a serious metal band, and we're not trying to please any certain genre.
Yeah.
Then the big change came on the next record, which I would say Comatose is really, really where you would say the start of successful Skillet records began.
And when I saw you guys on the Alto Bridge tour back in 2019, I was online and talking to a bunch of people, and they were like, oh man, I've been a fan since back in the day when they first put out Comatose, but not being aware.
I get a lot of that.
Yeah, because a lot of people assume Comatose is the debut, but I still love Collide because, again, like My Obsession, like one of the heaviest Skillet songs I think ever. But then, like, you also have A Little More or Under My Skin, which are just beautifully gentle ballads. I think it showed the rawest, darkest, dirtiest side of Skillet combined with, like, the more sensitive side that both, I think you are very good at demonstrating both.
Oh, thank you very much. I really don't disagree with any of that, to be honest.
Thank you. When it comes to the lyrical aspect, do you need the music already there before you could think of a lyrical idea, or does maybe like a lyrical concept or an idea like I know that Lucy was a very, very personal song. We don't need to go into that, but like I know that like certain songs are very more personal, so maybe that guided your hand with regards to the sound. Does a concept determine the music, or do you need music before lyrics come in?
It can go either way. There have been times when we've done the music first. So let's say that my wife Korey, she recorded a music bed, and songwriters always call it bottom line, in case people listening don't know that. So she records bottom line, and it's got the riff, and so there are times when I hear that and I go, man, that song sounds like this. It gives me the feeling of fill in the blank. Then there have been other times, I would say typically for me, it's the other way around. Typically for me, it would start with some sort of vocal hook that I like. For instance, when I wrote the song Hero, I liked this idea. I need a hero, save me now. That's all I had. And I liked that. And my wife was working on this, it wasn't a drum beat. There was it wasn't even bottom line. It was just a beat. And but it had like these like kind of hip hop hi-hats. Which is something that Skillet never did. That would be something more you would hear in hip hop, and I just liked that, and I thought that is so cool. It kind of had a Linkin Park vibe, which I'm a huge Linkin Park fan, and so it just kind of depends. It could go either way. Monster. I had the lyric for Monster, not a melody, but the lyric. I knew I wanted to write a song called I Feel Like a Monster. And funny story, I went to go write with someone outside of the band, a producer that was good friends with Shinedown, did a lot of work with Shinedown and Daughtry and lots of successful rock bands, a very successful writer, tons of hits. And I'd never met him, so I'd flown out, and we were working on a song together. And he said, do you have any lyrics you want to use? I said, I don't know if it's cheesy, but I had this idea for a lyric that says, I feel like a monster. And he goes, no, I think that's not right for this. And I said, okay, no worries. You feel vulnerable. You feel embarrassed because you have this idea that you just don't know if it's cheesy or if it's cool. And I was like, yeah, okay. So we ended up writing a song, that was on the Awake album. It was called Never Surrender.
I love that song.
And yeah, Never Surrender. It's a good song, but we didn't use it. And so months later, I went to write with someone else, and he was like, "Do you have any lyric ideas?" And I was thinking, I'm not going to embarrass myself again by bringing this monster idea up. But I said to him, we were working on a riff that was really good, and I said, well, I don't know if this is cheesy or not, but I have this idea. I feel like a monster. And he goes, dude, that is so rock and roll.
Of course.
And, and that became Monster. And it just kind of depends. It can go either way. Sometimes you strike gold and you don't even know you strike gold. Sometimes you write something that you're sure is a hit and then people don't like it. Sometimes people don't like it, but it ends up becoming a hit years later. You know, like our song Legendary from 2019, that was on our Victorious record. The song Legendary, we could not get played at radio, just could not get it played. And the label viewed it as such a failure that when we went in to record our next album, they said that we weren't allowed to produce it ourselves because we had failed on the last project. And I said to him, I was like, the song is streaming like crazy. And it's just funny because about 10 months ago, Legendary went gold. It's a gold single that never hit at radio. That was a failure, such a failure that they wouldn't let my wife produce our next project.
That's your that's your Van Gogh story, where like he made his whole life making paintings, and then nobody bought them until he died or whatever. So it happens. It happens.
You never know. You just kind of got to roll with it, and then you got to just understand that just because somebody doesn't like it doesn't mean it's worthless. Doesn't mean it's not good. If you believed in it, it's what you wanted to say, then that is good art. You did the best you could, and you let the chips fall where they may. That's my philosophy.
Definitely. When it comes to being a vocalist and a bassist, you know, because both are equally important. You know, Skillet is nothing without your voice, but you need a bassist to contribute to both the melodic and rhythmic aspects. Do you express a similar side of yourself with each instrument? Does it express the same thing, or is there maybe a side of yourself that you express on the bass that you can't express lyrically, and vice versa?
That is a deep question I've never considered. I feel like me being a songwriter, I don't know if this is true or not. I've thought this. I feel like being a songwriter makes me not a selfish bass player. You know, because if you're just a bass player, you really want to do something that somebody notices, because most people don't notice bass players.
It's true.
It's true. I mean, it's not fair because if the bass isn't there, everybody would know it. They might not know what's wrong, but it would be like not having a kick drum. You know, maybe you don't know what's going on, but something's off. There's no bottom end. But for rock and roll, a lot of times the bass is just, all you're supposed to be is like the girth, you know, you are just like the low end so that people feel it. There's only a handful of people that have I think of Korn, you know, Fieldy from Korn, just that they did something so unique and so whatever that you go, oh my gosh, Fieldy from Korn, you know what I mean? Chris Squire from Yes, you know, Doug Pinnick from King's X. There are those people, but the rest of us are mortals. We just play bass, you know. But I think that makes me where I don't have to, I'm not trying to prove anything. I don't have anything to prove. I just want to do what's best for the song. So I've never thought of it in terms of maybe expressing myself, but I do say I never write on bass because I can't feel it. I would write on guitar, or I would write on piano, or I would write in my head. I kind of know what the chords should be. I would do it on guitar, just because it's fuller for me. I don't know. That's just my way.
No. I mean, I'm really fascinated to hear that, because I mean, I watched your playing technique and it is very impressive. Because I think singing and playing, look, there's a lot of guitar players who can sing and play, and I think that's impressive too. I'm not, you know, undermining James Hetfield or Matt Heafy or anybody, but like to sing and play bass, like Sting, for example, I don't know how you do that. I really do not know how. You have to focus on one of the most important primal instruments of the band, doing something completely different with your fingers while singing something completely melodically out there as well. And you have like the Skillet songs are very epic in the sense that like I think like I get the same fulfillment as like a movie soundtrack in a way where it has that very uplifting sort of tendency. So like I've always wondered how you did that. It's funny you mentioned all that.
It's funny because I'm not very good at playing guitar and singing at the same time, which is really interesting because most people, guitar players, are always saying to me, I could never play bass and sing. It always felt natural to me. I don't really know why that is. Something about the kick drum that I definitely very much feel. So I would almost never begin to write, like, let's just say that I was writing a song right now and all I had was like a hook. So let's say there was no riffs in my head, but I knew I wanted to say, I feel it deep within, it's just beneath the skin, I must confess. I know that. I would always have a kick drum in my mind. You know, like there's always the drums going because that's how you feel it. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe it just got that groove. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. You definitely hit all aspects behind it. I have 2 more questions for you if you have time. I know you have a lot of press lined up.
Yeah.
But
hit me, man.
When it comes to the inspiration, is inspiration something you could go out looking for and really like seek it out in a way? Or do you just kind of have to let it strike you and kind of like, because I know like you don't want to force songwriting. It never comes out good if you force something. But you also like, I feel like waiting around for a hero, i.e. inspiration, is also kind of like a waste of time in itself. Like I've spoken to artists. I'm a tattoo artist, and I've talked to other tattoo artists saying, if I've only tattooed when I was inspired, I wouldn't pay my rent. So
Great. There's a pretty good crossover for my experience in writing. It's not to say that you never get inspired, like not to say that you never went, oh, I've got an idea for a tattoo.
Yeah.
Of course that probably happens. Or what if I, added this color in, blah, blah. I'm sure you have that. Same with music. So it happens. But I do not count on it. I do not wait on it. In my experience, it's usually the other way around. It's usually, hey, I need to work on some music, and dig in, think about something I want to say, give it a shot. Now, if you're working, and it just ain't happening, it ain't happening, man. But for me, I would say I'm a little less dependent on maybe my emotions than I've found with a lot of other of my friends who are singers and bands and artists that go, I just got to be feeling it, man. If I'm too this or this or this, I just can't write. I got to get in my zone, or I got to, I've heard lots of stories. I got to get off the road and go to a private place in a cabin in the woods. Like everybody's got all these things. I'm not really like that. And that might be because I'm kind of a pragmatic person. I don't know. But for me, it's more about, do I have something to say? I feel like I could always write music because it's fun and music is math, music just makes sense and it's fun. I can always write a riff. That's not so difficult. But do you have something to say? Do you have something you feel on your heart that you go, that's worth telling the world? You know what I mean? Or I'm so moved by this or this relationship or love or heartbreak or breakup or pain or the violence we see that's happening in schools. Am I just pissed off at school shootings and I want to do something about it? Or all these things come in you and you just go, I got to write a song about this. Something is in me and it's got to come out.
Yeah.
That happens with lyrics, but it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden it hit me and I wrote something amazing. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, it definitely did. And you couldn't be more right. Look, before we are musicians or artists, we are all human beings at the same time. And I've learned from doing interviews that a lot of the musicians who I've admired over the years, interviewing some of my favorite, heroes, like they're just people just like myself. And everybody else. So like I'd imagine when you're on the road constantly, you have so much to deal with. Being a father is the most important job in the world as well. Maybe you don't feel awake and alive every single night that you're playing it. Like it just and same thing if you had to play. I mean, it's a deep cut at this point, but like Open Wounds, a very very somber and song. If you're playing that on one of the greatest days of your life, that's a buzzkill if I've ever heard one. So like, I still love that song. But like, so emotions are difficult to like be. You need them in your music, but you can't possibly feel the same way when you perform something as you do when you write it.
I know what you mean. One of the things, I'm not sure if I don't know what other people feel about this, but I can say honestly for me, I almost never, people always say, do you get bored playing a song over and over and over? Like, gotta play Monster again tonight. I almost never feel like that. I don't want to say I never feel like that, because maybe I have, but I can't remember ever feeling that way. It's the excitement from the crowd. I can see what the song means. Like, here's an example. The other night, two shows ago, because we're on tour right now with Seether. 2 shows ago, we were playing the song Hero, and I looked down, and it was a good crowd. It was in Dallas. There's about 3,000 people. It was good. I could see a girl, like, in the pit, 4 people back, and she was singing, looking at me singing, but she was just weeping. She was crying and singing, and I have no idea what her story is, right? Is she happy? Does it remind her of something sad? Is she happy and sad? Who knows? It could be, my God, she could be celebrating 3 years clean and sober, and Hero is the song that helped get her to rehab. I meet people like that all the time. I went to rehab because I heard your song on the radio. Your mind is blown. I was singing on stage, and I saw her 4 people back, and I was immediately moved. And I pointed at her, and I went like this, like, come closer. And I jumped off the stage, and I was singing, and I came up to her, and I gave her a big hug, and she was hugging me and shaking and crying. And I have no idea what's going on in her life. For me personally, I cannot get bored. I just can't get bored, because God knows what these songs may mean to somebody. So, yes, you get beat down, exhausted, sick, and you got to go play those songs, and you're sick, and you're like, I can't make it. I can't even make it through the show. But for the most part, man, I know what music means to me. I remember high school fighting with my dad, in pain, lonely, thought nobody liked me, have no friends. What do? It's nighttime. The demons come out. The demons come in my head. What do? I put my headphones on, and I turn on Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. I turn on Metallica, Nothing Really Matters. I turn on Name It, and all of a sudden, your world starts to feel a little better. That's what music does. So for me personally, I never get bored singing these songs. I know it means things to people.
That's amazing. And that means a lot too. Like, as somebody who, I could say that I grew up with your music at this point now. So like, it really means a lot to know that, like, it seems like new life is formed as more people experience your music. Like, it seems like new life is formed as, like, it seems like the songs develop a new lease of life. I've always said art is life. It grows, it develops, it could eventually die sometimes. So like, I feel like music in itself, as people experience it more, there's more context and more life added to the songs.
I think that's right, because as a musician, for me, I never knew my songs would mean that to someone else. Meaning, I hope they liked it, I hope they relate to it, but I never thought they'd get it tattooed on their arm. You know what I mean? I never thought they would come up to me crying and saying, I mean, honestly, I hear this once a week at least. In fact, just the other night, I dedicated Awaken Alive to a woman named Cynthia. And she came to the line. She said, remember me? She said, I told you last year, Awaken Alive is my theme song. It got me through rehab. I'm 6 years clean and sober. She came through the line. She said, remember me? I told you last year, 6 years. It's 7 years. And I dedicated the song to her. I never imagined that. So now all of a sudden this song does take on, I mean, I knew it meant something to me, but I'm like, now I know it means something to you. It's such a privilege to play music. Music is power. Music changes people's lives. As cheesy as it sounds, do you remember School of Rock? And Jack Black says, one great concert can change the world. I kind of believe it.
Just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it isn't true. My first
It's true.
April 22nd, 2009, I still remember my first concert like it was yesterday, and that was over half my lifetime ago.
Yeah.
So
people still talk about Queen and what's the Africa show?
Live Aid.
Yeah. How many people still talk about that? Everywhere you go, ew. I mean, one great concert can change the world.
Yeah, but new rule, bands can't do that anymore. That's a Freddie Mercury thing. I've seen other bands do it. Leave that there.
Yeah.
But
I usually do it. I don't do that, but I usually say, let me yeah, and I'll go yeah, and then I'll give them one of these. I'll give them a yeah from a Kiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I give them a kiss. That's okay.
you got a little Usher and a little Kiss. I like it. So.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I usually give them a little. It's the beginning of Heaven's on Fire, I think, right?
Yep.
I do it every night.
That's awesome.
Heaven's on Fire. That's the one. And if anybody out there knows it, they know I'm paying homage. You can see some people that like it, you know.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Most of all, thank you for your music and everything you've done. Is there just anything else with the release of Revolution you'd like to promote? I know you're on tour right now with Seether. Just what else we could be expecting from Skillet in the future, if you're allowed to say at this moment, of course.
Well, I just want to say thanks for the interview. I appreciate it. It was so fun talking to you. Then such great, kind words. Thanks to everybody for listening. Please go check out Revolution. Check out the new songs. If you dig it, pre-save it wherever you listen to music. Pre-order it. If you like Skillet stuff, I think you'll love the record. Very anthemic, very positive. It's going to make you feel better about the world, not worse. So go check that out. We're touring internationally for the rest of the year, Middle East, things like that. So nothing probably right now. There's no new secrets. How's that?
I love that. Because I know how musicians are. Every time I ask them if they want something to promote, you probably have tours booked for like the January of 2026 at this point, but like you can't say it like at that point.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But thank you so much.
Sometimes.
Everybody, we are here.
Thank you, brother. Great to chat with you.
Anytime.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
We are here with Skillet. Be sure to check out Revolution. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.